Hi, I'm Lisa Evans from Speaking Savvy, and I'm really excited about the upcoming book, Stories from the Heart, Tales of Inspiration. It's a collection of 16 short stories that have all been told on a Stories from the Heart live stage. So it's going to be fabulous. And today I'm talking to one of the authors of the book, Louise Kelly from Louise Kelly Consulting. And Louise is a professional development specialist. She loves reading, she loves film, she loves travel, and all things creative. Hi, Louise. How are you this morning?
Hi, Lisa. I'm really well. Thank you very much for having me.
That's great. That's great. Now, I want to ask you a few questions so that we can get to know you a little bit better. Let me ask you, what advice would you give yourself if you had the opportunity to go back in time and tell your younger self something? What would that be?
Oh, Lisa, there are just so many things I wish I knew when I was younger, and there's so many things I want to share with younger women growing up. I think the most important thing is to actually work out what it is that you really want and what your values are, and not to be led along with other people or to follow the crowd or to um, believe that what other people believed is actually what you believe, because it's had me undone so many times. I've actually got my own values mixed up with other people's values, and I haven't been clear until, gosh, this age, really. It's taken me a long time to actually realize what things I really want and what I really value and the things that I hold precious and dear. And it's been an interesting journey, but I think that's the most important thing, is to realize what it is that you hold true, what your values are, and to stick to them. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And often as women, we do spend a lot of time, particularly when we're younger, trying to please others and trying to fit in. And often it's only when we get older that we feel, really fully comfortable with being okay with who we are and really, putting our foot down and saying, this is what I'm about and these are my values. So that is really, really great advice, and certainly advice that I would have liked when I was younger too. Now, Louise, you enjoy films and you enjoy reading. Let's talk a little bit about books. Is there a particular author or book that has really influenced you in your life?
There's lots of books, Lisa. Books have been constant throughout my entire life. My mum was an editor, and then she had a small publishing business. So I've always been around books. And when I was a child, I grew up in the country, and books were my escapism, and they were like a doorway to other worlds. So I was always really interested in books that took me to different worlds. When I was a kid, it would have been the Enid Blyton books, growing up in England, all the adventures. I loved the Swallows and Amazons. I fell in love completely with C.S. Lewis and the Narnia Chronicles, and I just loved the idea of what you could be. It seemed so different to the real world. As I grew older, I loved adventure books with travel. I became a flight attendant, and I travelled all over the world. I had lots of fun. I liked Wilbur Smith books set in Africa, particularly like the Egyptian series. I got introduced to Clan of the Cave Bear and absolutely loved the idea of being self-sufficient in prehistoric times. I've always been really interested in herbs and healing from herbs. In fact, my first job was for a herbalist. And I love the idea of what you could do with growing plants and food as medicine. And then in the last 20 years or so, may not be that long, the Outlander series, the time-travelling nurse who goes back into 1700s in Scotland. I love the fantasy of all of those. So they're the kind of books that I enjoyed. Oh, I remember there was a TV series on when I was growing up, and it was called A Traveller in Time. And it was by a quite extraordinary author called Alison Utley. And I'd really recommend somebody tracking down some of her work. She was quite a philosopher. She's very interesting. So
Wow.
quite diverse.
Yeah, real diverse collection. And some of those I haven't heard of, and I'd like to try them out. And certainly I can relate to some of those titles that you mentioned growing up in England. And I was a real Narnia fan as well. That was one of my favourites.
Yeah.
The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe I would read over and over again.
Yeah.
And do you prefer to read the physical book, or do you like to listen to books, or do you have a Kindle, or all three? What's your preferred method of absorbing books?
That's quite interesting, Lisa. What's happened is my eyesight's changed because I've got older, and because of that, reading isn't as much pleasure as it used to be, reading a physical book. And I can't tolerate books that have got really small font anymore. I go to the library a lot. In fact, the library is one of my happy places. I prefer books in larger font. I like the physical holding of a book, but I don't want a book that's too heavy, because I want to be able to pick it up and take it with me. I've always got maybe 10 books out from the library at once. I'm fascinated with what I can learn, and it's quite diverse. So Audible books, I love listening to leadership stuff on Audible. And I also get out MP3s from the library. So a lot of the heavy stuff, I prefer to hear it rather than read it. But then I also want to draw diagrams so that I understand what it is that I've read. The Dan Brown books, I really liked them when they had the illustrations in them, because I'm one of the learners that likes to use a lot of my senses. I like to see and hear. If I'm gardening, I will put on a podcast or listen to a book that way. And one that I'd read in the physical form once or twice and struggled with because it was very crammed and very dense was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But when I heard it on Audible, it was so different. It was so easy to absorb it because it was Stephen Covey reading it himself. So a mixture. I've never really been into Kindle. I've got a lot of Kindle books, but I don't tend to do them that way. I like listening and I like reading.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great. Thank you, Louise. Well, I'm really excited that you are one of the 16 co-authors of the book. It's going to be great. It is going to be a light book, a great read where people can, pick up and just dive in, because the stories are so different. And that's what I love about having a short collection of stories that people can literally have a bite-sized read over a cup of coffee. So before we finish, Louise, can you just tell us where we can find out more about you?
Well, I've got a website, Louise Kelly Consulting, and I'm also a big follower on social media. So you can look me up as Louise Kelly Consulting on Facebook. I dabble a bit with a few other things like Instagram, Tumblr, Pinterest, Twitter. Oh, I'm quite busy on LinkedIn, and I've written quite a few articles on LinkedIn that you can have a look at as well.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for talking to us today, Louise. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye, Lisa.